this episode, a ghost commonly encountered on the highway north of Blanco, Texas, is that of a madman with a bloody past. And our story starts in Blanco, Texas, with the Lackey family. Greenberry and Mary Lackey moved to Central Texas in the 1800s, in the county of Blanco. They brought with them their family, and we're going to look at three of their sons. The first one we're going to look at is Nathaniel Lackey. He married Isabella Jackson. The second son we're going to look at is James Lackey, also went by Chris, and he married Allie Pruitt. The third son we're going to look at is Albert Lackey, but he went by Al, and he's the one that goes on the murder spree. Now, there were other Lackey children, but they were not involved in this murder spree. James and Allie had a son named Charlie Lackey. Now, during the Civil War, James was killed. And this part's a little disturbing to some, but Albert Lackey married his sister-in-law, Allie. And this made his nephew, Charlie, also his stepson. Things are about to get more confusing in just a moment. Albert and Allie had a child together, and her name was Martha Lackey, but she went by Maddie. Now, Nathaniel's wife, her sister was Lucy Jackson, and she married Jim Stokes. Jim Stokes and Lucy had a daughter named Fanny Stokes. And Fanny Stokes and Charlie Lackey married. Now, the rumor is that Charlie married his cousin, but they weren't related in any shape, way, or form. All right, now that we got the family tree established, let's jump into the murders. And we're going to start with Albert Lackey, the murderer himself. What caused him to go off on this murder spree in 1885? Well, the rumors were flying around that Albert had violated or had molested his stepson's wife, Fanny. And it was also rumored that he had molested or had violated his daughter, Maddie. Now, Albert flipped out about these rumors, and I don't know if they're true or not. We have no idea. But he went next door and he broke into the neighbor's house and stole a Winchester out of their home, mounts his horse, and he goes straight for his stepson Charlie's house. And he's looking for Fanny. When he arrives, he finds her rocking her baby to sleep on the front porch. Al simply rides up, puts the rifle to her face, and pulls the trigger. Both Fanny and the baby fall to the porch. However, the baby survived. And when they found the baby later on in the day, they said it was asleep against the mother's body, but was completely covered in the mother's blood. Al couldn't find Charlie anywhere about, so he goes straight to his brother Nathaniel's house. And as he's approaching, he sees his sister-in-law, Isabella, out front. Al kills her in cold blood. Nathaniel sees this, and he starts running off one direction, and his son runs off another direction into the woods. Nathaniel's son stops there and watches what happens next. Al rides up to his brother, knocks him to the ground, and Nathaniel begins pleading for his life, begging Al to save him. But Al just takes the rifle, puts it to the back of Nathaniel's ear, and pulls the trigger. From here, he goes to the Stokes house, and when he rides up, he finds both Jim and Lucy out front. And once again, he just murders them in cold blood. He then turns his horse and goes straight for his own home. When he arrives, he finds his daughter Maddie out front. He murders her in cold blood, but now he's run out of ammo. So he dismounts, goes into the house, and his wife Allie is in there and sees what he's done. And she grabs the baby and takes off running out of the house. Al grabs a large butcher knife, and they said it was about a foot long, and he starts chasing after Allie. But she goes into a grove of trees and disappears. Al can't find her. He looks for a little bit, and he just starts laughing and cackling. And at this point, he takes the knife, he puts it to his throat, and he's looking at her general direction, and he slits his throat, and then continues to laugh and cackle. He then mounts his horse and takes off riding. Along the way, he finds a neighbor named Tom Bundick. Now, Tom had no feud with Al. There was no bad blood between the two of them. But as soon as Tom's back was turned to Al, he began plunging the knife over and over into Tom's back. The knife stuck in Tom's back, and he fell off the horse and onto the ground. Now from here, I'll go straight to the city of Blanco. And when he arrives, he begins to tell the sheriff and a bunch of the townsfolk that Tom Bundick just slayed his family. So they begin to form a posse, and they're going to go out and they're going to look for Tom Bundick and bring him to justice. However, at the same exact time, on the other side of town, Nathaniel's son arrives. And Nathaniel's son tells everybody what Al has done. That Al's the one that has murdered his family. That he watched Al murder his dad in cold blood. So the two posses meet, and it's determined what Al has done. The posse takes Al directly to the jail, turns him over to the sheriff, and he's arrested. While he's there, they stitch his neck up. But not long after that, as soon as it got dark, a posse showed up. And they dragged Al from his jail cell out into the streets where they're going to hang him. However, there was a man there whose wife was sick, and he begged and pleaded, please do this somewhere else. So they loaded Al onto a wagon, and they took him out about a mile north of town on what's now Highway 281. And it was almost directly across from the Blanco River Hotel. Now they placed Al up on the wagon. They threw the rope over a tree, and Al said, that tree won't work. I'll snap it. So they move over one tree, still close by the road. And it's here that they ask Al, did you murder your family? Did you murder all those people? And he confesses, yes, I did. And there were 6 more I intend to kill. At that, they went to rip the wagon out from underneath Al so that he would drop and break his neck. However, the wagon slowly moved out, and Al slowly fell off the wagon, and it didn't snap his neck, and he just sat there and strangled, and it took him a while. His body was flopping around, and he suffered tremendously. After a while, his body was motionless, and the posse went home. The next evening, some men were headed to Blanco, and as they were headed there, they saw Al's body still swinging from the tree. I don't know how many days he was left there, but he was left there as a sign of justice. Now, I did some research, and this story absolutely happened. It is recorded in numerous papers throughout the country. Now, Al's unfinished business is why he haunts the road. If you remember when they were hanging him, and he told them, there are 6 I yet intend to kill. As a matter of fact, in the 1960s, a man named John L. Tolson from San Antonio was leaving Sister Dale, Texas, and heading home. And along the way, he saw a man just north of Blanco, Texas, on the 281, wearing a blue shirt and brown pants. He was very unkempt, and he was bleeding profusely from his neck, and he had blood running down the side of his shirt. So John stops his car, sees if he needs help, and as the man approaches, he has a foot-long butcher knife in his hand. John takes off, rips down the road, goes home. A couple of years later, John was in a barber shop in Blanco, Texas, and he told the barbers about what he had witnessed, this wacko out on Highway 281. The barber said, well, that's the ghost of Lackey, and they told him the story. Everyone, if you're enjoying this video and you would like me to continue producing these videos that tell you about places that you can investigate or check out on a budget, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. We will be covering stories throughout the United States. You can click on it anytime during the episode, and it won't interrupt the video. And now, let's continue on with the eyewitness accounts and places that you can go and investigate. Another eyewitness said that a crazy redneck was banging on his car at the Blanco River Hotel. He looks out the window and he sees a guy with a blue shirt and blood on, but he didn't see his face. He just took off. According to reports, a large number of people in Blanco, Texas have actually seen the ghost of Al Lackey on the Highway 281 north of their town. So if you want to go on an adventure of your own, be sure to take your car and drive out to Blanco and head north up to Johnson City. Turn around and come back and see if you catch Al Lackey out there. So a couple of other sites that you can visit while you're there is the grave of Al Lackey. And I've been told that he's buried somewhere near the First Baptist Church, and that you'll see a ring of stones out in a field, and he's buried inside that ring of stones. Other people have said he's actually buried in the old cemetery at Blanco, and that his grave is unmarked, and it's a ring of stones. You can also go up to the Sandy Cemetery, where the 6 victims of Al Lackey are buried. However, directions to this is pretty difficult, so I'm going to place the coordinates in the comments down below. And while you're in town, be sure to visit the Buggy Bar Museum. Take along a couple of devices. There they house a carriage that was once a hearse for the royalty of Bohemia. And a number of people have snapped pictures of apparitions near the carriage. Alright guys, that's going to do it for part 1 of this video. But be sure to catch part 2 as it gets really crazy. It deals with a highway leading out of Blanco heading east, known as the Devil's Backbone. And it is possibly the most haunted road in all of the United States. Definitely the most haunted road of Texas. There are so many sightings and so many wild stories. It's even been featured on Unsolved Mysteries. Alright, that's going to conclude this episode. If you didn't already, please hit that subscribe button by clicking on the logo, or watch one of these videos. And until next time, we're off on another adventure. God bless.